All right, challengers. So I'm here with Charlie Lawrence, who is a professional runner just coming off of the Olympic Trials Marathon. So Charlie, thanks for being here with us.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Sloan.
Um, so I guess to start with, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your running background, where you grew up, what kind of your daily running looks like right now.
Yes, sir. So I grew up in Foley, Minnesota. It's a very, very, very small town, about 2,500 people. If you were to drop a pin right in the middle of Minnesota, that's where my hometown is. So kind of a small farm town, really good place to grow up. I guess getting into running, I actually started, my mom was the head cross country coach at my high school. And my parents got separated when I was in first grade, kind of the end of first grade. And it was either go to daycare or go to cross-country practice as a second grader that next fall. And I didn't want to go to daycare. So I'm like, all right, let's go to practice, hang out with mom. And I started running with some of the junior high kids. So started from a pretty young age, just kind of went through high school competing, competed well enough to get recruited by a few D1 schools, looked at Wisconsin, Minnesota, Notre Dame, kind of my top three. Decided to go to my hometown, Minnesota. So I ran for the Gophers. And from there, continued to train, working full time. And I guess ultimately after my debut marathon, got a professional offer from Hanson Brooks and took that. So.
Awesome. So we're, I think, 3 weeks now off of the 2020 U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials. Feels like 3 years ago at this point, honestly.
Yeah, you're telling me.
So being in Atlanta, we're super grateful that one, we had that event here, and two, that we got it in before all of this stuff happened. But tell us a little bit about kind of like leading up to qualifying for the trials, kind of what sort of work goes into that. When did you know like that you wanted to be training at a level where you'd be competing to be an Olympian?
Yeah, so I think I actually have to give a lot of credit to one of my older teammates who's a fifth year, my freshman year of college at Minnesota. And he right away he was like a 29 flat 10K guy, really, really solid. Ran a couple half marathons, ran like 64-ish, kind of right after college, but then he was done. This is 2013. He gave it up. He threw on 30, 40 pounds and he still doesn't run at all.
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah. And he's like, one of the biggest regrets I have, Charlie, is not seeing what I could have done in running for at least a year afterwards. He's like, I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to put in the work. So if you have any desire to it, like he regrets kind of doing that because he said it's so hard to get back into it now. Like he'll run on occasion, maybe once a week.
Mm-hmm.
So really I knew that after I was done competing, I wanted to see what I could do at least competing at the highest level possible. So I finished up competing the spring of 2018 for Minnesota. Right away I'd already signed up for Grandma's half marathon, which is in my home state. So it's pretty easy. I actually grew up going to that. My mom has run the marathon. My dad's run the half. And I'd go since I was 3-4. I ran their 5K there, a part of Grandma's weekend when I was 5. We'd stay really right in the hotel that overlooked the finish line. So it was right there in the heart of all of it, Grandma's marathon weekend. So I knew that would be a spot I wanted to run my half marathon debut, and went well, ran 64:14. But kind of right after that, it's like, okay, we can do something here like that. Hopefully that sets you up well to run a good marathon in the fall of 2018.
So to give kind of the people doing this challenge an idea of how fast that is, like what minute mile pace is 64 minutes for a half?
It was 4:54 average. So,
nice.
So and there too, I kind of went in just wanting to compete as well as I could. I knew I could probably run around 5 flat-ish for sure, but kind of started going and started working it down after a couple, like 4:58, 5 flat, and started feeling good and just got with a good group, and that momentum just built throughout the race, and was able to work it down and set what is actually still my PR in the half marathon. So hopefully we got to work on that soon here.
Nice.
But
So did you qualify with that half marathon time for the trials, or was it your marathon time that qualified you?
I didn't know. So it was my marathon time. So with that, I kind of went back to my college coach. He was kind of wrote my training up through the end of my collegiate season to Grandma's half in June. And I was like, well, this is working well. Had a good college career under him. Like, he's a two-time Olympian, Steve Placentia, still a great friend of mine, mentor. We kind of set up a plan to run Cal International that next December. That was actually his debut marathon, and he won it back in 92 or something. He ran like 2:14-ish. So he's, has a pretty good background and pedigree and a good idea of what CIM would bring, and that'd be a good opportunity to qualify for the trials. So I kind of laid out a plan towards the end of that summer and built up towards CIM, training under Plaz, working a full-time job actually. I was a ticket sales rep for the Minnesota Gophers. I loved it. And then I was doing that, again, finishing grad school and then doing the marathon training. So I got to 120 miles a week doing that, those 3 other things, but was happy to debut, ran 2:16:10 at Cal International 2018, was 20th overall and got the OTQ there. So I guess long story short, was kind of looking at contracts after that, options, talked to a couple of companies, but one that really stood out was Kevin and Keith Hansen. And I talked to Kevin on the road back at the US 20K championships that September of 2018 prior to getting my Olympic trials qualifier, and was just super impressed with him and their program and him as a person. And I really couldn't say no when the opportunity was there right after kind of the new year of 2019. So.
Okay. So I think like most people think of running and distance running as sort of an individual sport. Like it's like you out there putting in the miles and you out there running the races. How important is kind of the support system and the team and kind of like training to be the best that you can be?
It's huge. It's awesome. I mean, I grew up with a great support system kind of from day one, like my dad being an athlete runner, kind of growing up in the sport that way, through my mom in high school, to having my teammates at Minnesota, to Coach Placentia, to Coach Placentia still coaching me up through, Cal International of 2018. But even then too, if I was free on the weekends, I would hop in with, some of the long runs with the Minnesota guys. I was running at about roughly 4:45 to 5 a.m. every morning just to decide to be in the office to work and hit the phones to make phone calls. So most of the time was alone, but it's crazy when you get with a group of like-minded people, kind of what you can do, and you really kind of can push yourself beyond what you can normally, I would say. I mean, it takes a lot of mental skill in a way to be able to do, or mental toughness to be able to grind out, those 5 a.m. mornings, which I think benefits you in a different way. But when you have teammates that can push you, definitely helps. So that was great. Then you got to Hansen's after training alone for what was, 5-6 months essentially. And, it was great because was with guys that had run, like Ritz had run 2:07 in the marathon. Shaddy 3rd at Boston, 5th at New York. Even other guys like club cross champions like Ian Lemire. So I can go either way with, someone who's clearly quicker than me at the shorter distances, and then, guys, legends of the sport like Shaddy and Ritz. So you can go several different ways and really just better yourself, the higher distances, and, little lower distances such as like a 5K, 10K. So it's great.
Nice. So tell us about kind of your weekend and your experience here in Atlanta for the trials, and kind of like goals going into it, how it all played out for you.
Yeah. So I guess first off, shout out to Atlanta Track Club. That was incredible. I mean, I remember I did Road to Gold, a year prior, and they were talking about how they were, putting so much into it, how no matter if you had the A standard, B standard, you're going to be treated the same. So it was my first one. And I was like, all right, yeah, this is going to be a typical, Olympic trials, da-da-da. But then talking to Shadrach, just around the weekend and eating food together and hanging, I was like, this is 100 times better than LA. This is incredible. It was just a spectacle. It was a great event. I mean, being right there on Centennial Olympic Park, just how they set it up with the meals, the experience, everything from, landing and getting on the Metra all the way to the hotel and, taking it back. It was awesome. World-class experience. Never run a marathon major, but from what I've been told, that felt like a world marathon major. The atmosphere was crazy, super exciting, especially going up through downtown and Peachtree. Course is tough, I'll tell you that. The wind didn't make it any easier as well, but had pretty high expectations. From what I thought I could do, definitely underperformed, but that just kind of feels the fire for 2024 and getting back to it. So, but again, it was a hell of an experience, and something that I'll cherish moving forward. And I seriously go back to one of my older teammates where he's like, put what you can into running, while you're still at it, you can still do it. And, that was 100% so happy. I just kept with it, wanted to get OTQ, and now I'm just hungry again for another one. And, really chomping at the bit to do a lot better than 61st in the next one. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I think we're super fortunate here to have the Atlanta Track Club as kind of our sort of torchbearer for the running community here, because they do a ton. And we had people just lining the streets, kind of tailgating for the thing. And it was awesome to see Atlanta kind of show up to support that type of event, because it was just a special experience.